Thomas Alive Today presents
10 more defunct dead retail stores. Kiddie City was started around 1957 in Philadelphia as toy supermarkets. By the early 1970s, Lionel had purchased the chain and grew it to 150 stores, under the names Lionel Kiddie City, Lionel Playworld, and Lionel Toy Warehouse, rebranded as Lionel Kiddie City in 1990. For a time, it was the second largest toy store chain in the United States. Lionel ran into financial trouble during the early 1980s recession and filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in February 1982. After reducing itself in size to 55 stores, it emerged from bankruptcy in September 1985. By 1991, the chain grew to 100 stores and was the fourth largest toy retailer in the country, but once again ran into trouble due to a combination of factors. In 1989, Robert I. 2CLP, a partnership of several retail executives, attempted to buy the company. Lionel resisted, and the fight drained the company of cash. Meanwhile, non-specialty discount stores expanded their toy sections and undercut the prices of specialty toy chains. Additionally, Lionel found it difficult to compete on price with the larger Toys R Us, and the chain attempted to expand too rapidly in a weakened economy. After several successive unprofitable quarters, it filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on June 14, 1991. In 1992, Lionel attempted to reverse its fortunes by merging with the bankrupt Child World, the United States' number 3 toy retailer, but was unable to secure financing. By February 1993, Lionel had closed all but 29 stores in 6 states, concentrating on the markets of Philadelphia, Central New Jersey, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Cleveland, Ohio, and South Florida. Unable to reach an agreement for reorganization with its creditors, on June 2, Lionel announced its intention to liquidate all of its stores and go out of business. Higbee's was founded by Edwin Converse Higbee and John G. Hauer on September 10, 1860, as Higbee and Hauer Dry Goods. The first day of business saw $100 in sales. It was reorganized as the Higbee Company in 1902 after the death of Mr. Hauer and relocated from its original Public Square location to a new 5-story Playhouse Square Center store. Directly across from its Swarnar rival Halley Brothers Company in 1929, it was acquired by the Van Swearingen brothers, who moved the store to their new $179 million Terminal Tower complex on Public Square, partly in response to pleas from women who wished to occupy homes in their new suburb of Shaker Heights and ride the Van's new railroads into the city for quality shopping. The store subsequently went bankrupt in 1935 as the Van Swearingen empire collapsed in the Great Depression, but thanks to store executives Charles P. Bradley and John Murphy, the company was reorganized and flourished under their guidance for many years. The 1960s and 1970s saw the addition of several stores in suburbs as well as expansion to Akron and Canton, all under the watch of President Herbert Strawbridge, who also saw the value of giving new life to the Flats district in downtown Cleveland. In 1984, Industrial Equity, a subsidiary of Brierley Investments, acquired Higbee's, selling it 3 years later to a joint venture of Dillard's and Edward J. DeBartolo Sr., who planned to combine Higbee's with an intended acquisition of Horne's. The deal was canceled abruptly, resulting in several years of litigation. In 1992, Dillard's bought out DeBartolo's shares and rebadged Higbee's in 5 of the Northern Ohio Horne stores with its name. During the 1990s, several inner-ring stores were closed while new far-flung locations opened or expanded. Parisian was founded in Birmingham, Alabama in 1877 by Estella and Bertha Summers. The sisters sold it to Carl Hess and William Holleiner in the 1920s. Hess's son Emil and Holleiner's son-in-law, Leonard Sallet, bought the chain in 1950 and established its first credit program. After Sallet died, Hess's family took over the chain. Parisian opened stores in several shopping malls throughout Birmingham in the 1970s, including Eastwood Mall, now Eastwood Village. In the 1960s, it began opening stores outside Birmingham. First, they opened a store in Gateway Shopping Center in Decatur, Alabama, and then expanded to Parkway City Mall in Huntsville, University Mall in Tuscaloosa, Bel Air Mall in Mobile, and Eastdale Mall and Montgomery Mall in Montgomery. By the mid-1980s, Parisian had 13 stores in Alabama. Its first 2 stores outside the state were both in Florida at Cordova Mall in Pensacola, and Sarasota Square Mall, now Westfield Sarasota Square in Sarasota. Australian-based real estate firm L.J. Hooker bought Parisian, von Witt-Teller, and B. Altman in 1988, but sold its share in Parisian a year later after L.J. Hooker filed for bankruptcy. The company sold Parisian back to the Hess family. By the early 1990s, Parisian had opened its first stores outside the southeastern United States, in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. In the mid-1990s, 2 new stores opened in Florida alone were at Seminole Town Center and the Avenues. Parisian underwent a series of restructurings and mergers during its 130-year history, and was taken over by Profits Incorporated in 1996. In September 2006, Belk purchased Parisian from Saks for $285 million, with 24 locations later becoming Belk by September 2007. Parisian was quickly sold once more in October 2006 to the Bonton, with stores operating in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Parisian operated individually under its own separate division until 2013, when the exclusive rights to operate Parisian had expired, marking the end of this upmarket department store. Gottschalks was founded by German-Jewish immigrant Emil Gottschalk in 1904 as a dry goods store in downtown Fresno, California. 10 years later, the store grew enough to move into another building downtown with 10 times the amount of space. Before his passing in 1939, Emil passed control to his brother-in-law, Henry Korn, and his nephew, Abe Bloom. The company opened its first branch store in Merced in 1961 and new stores in Visalia and Fresno. Gottschalks launched Bobby West, a chain of junior apparel stores, in the late 1960s. Village East shops, which offered plus-sized women's clothing, were launched in 1970. Irving Levy served as the 4th of 7 presidents in the 105 years that Gottschalks operated. Upon Irving Levy's death in 1981, his son Joseph Levy became CEO and chairman of the board until James Follett was elevated to these positions in 1999 and 2007, respectively. Most of the Le Mans locations that were acquired by Gottschalks eventually closed due to poor sales. The exception was the Alaska market, where sales were strong and only one store, Wasilla, was closed prior to the company's shutdown. Closures included the locations at the Northgate Mall in Seattle, Washington, in September 2006, and in Tacoma Highlands on September 22, 2007, a freestanding location unlike the typical mall setting. The Northgate Mall location marked the closing of the last Gottschalks in Seattle. In Washington state, the remaining Gottschalks locations had succeeded in rural and suburban areas with less competition from other department stores. On October 24, 2008, Gottschalks was delisted from the New York Stock Exchange. NYSE officials stated that the value of the stock was too low to continue to be listed, and that its average global market capitalization had remained below $25 million for 30 straight trading days. Company officials claimed to be negotiating a deal for a loan with a Chinese company, Everbright Development Overseas Limited. They also stated that they would appeal the delisting decision. On December 18, 2008, but Everbright had pulled out of the deal. On January 14, 2009, Gottschalks filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In March 2009, Gottschalks announced it lined up a group of bidders that would liquidate the chain if no other bidder was found by March 30. On March 31, Gottschalks announced it would liquidate its remaining stores. The chain's final stores closed July 12, 2009. Several prime locations became Macy's or Forever 21. In 1962, Harry Levin opened his first Happy Harry's discount drug store in Wilmington, Delaware, simply called Discount Center. He quickly gained a reputation for his always cheerful disposition, and customers soon simply referred to his store as Happy's. In 1965, upon opening his third store, the name of the chain was changed to Happy Harry's Discount Drugs. Just before the company's 25th anniversary in 1987, Happy Harry died, and his son, Alan Levin, took over the growing company. At the time, Happy Harry's was the largest drugstore chain in Delaware and soon grew to 76 stores. On June 5, 2006, Happy Harry's announced that it would be acquired by Walgreens. The announcement of the acquisition was surprising for Walgreens, whose approach differs most notably from its competitors when it comes to growth. Walgreens' expansion is fueled primarily by opening new, freestanding locations with drive-through pharmacies and occasionally by quiet acquisitions of small pharmacies, rather than expanding through mergers and public acquisitions. However, with little presence in Happy Harry's primary market, the addition of Happy Harry's was a valuable new resource for Walgreens to leverage in its continuing expansion. Initially, Walgreens decided to keep Happy Harry's name on its existing stores. However, the 8 stores in Pennsylvania were revamped as standard stores due to Walgreens' stronger branding there. Happy Harry's remained open in Delaware but was modified to read Happy Harry's, a Walgreens pharmacy. These stores went through significant interior and exterior modifications to conform to Walgreens standards for product display, store arrangement, and pharmacy design. Walgreens districts around the country were mobilized to convert the various store systems to Walgreens equivalents. The most important conversion was for the pharmacy, whose computer system was changed to Walgreens' homegrown Intercom Plus pharmacy computer software, along with the installation of satellite equipment, which linked each pharmacy with over 7,000 other Walgreens pharmacies in the continental U.S., Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. This enabled Happy Harry's customers to have prescriptions refilled and records retrieved at any Walgreens pharmacy nationwide. In April 2011, the last Happy Harry's pharmacies in the Wilmington area leaving converted to Walgreens, with no remains of Happy Harry's. Tracing its antecedents to Hackfeld's dry goods formed by German trader Heinrich Hackfeld in 1849, in 1852 the retail location was renamed for Hackfeld's nephew, B. F. Ehlers. Hackfeld continued to maintain an interest in the store, while he concentrated on his trading, shipping and real estate interests. In 1881, Paul Eisenberg became half-partner in the business. In 1898 the Hackfeld and Eisenberg family interests in Hawaii were officially reorganized as H. Hackfeld & Company. In 1918 at the height of World War I, H. Hackfeld & Company was seized by the American government as alien property since many of the Hackfeld and Eisenberg heirs still lived in Germany, and was sold to a newly formed consortium, American Factors. At the same time the B.F. Ehlers store was renamed the Liberty House in response to anti-German sentiment. With Hackfeld's huge sugarcane plantations and land interests, American Factors, later known as AmFac, became one of Hawaii's Big Five landowners. In 1969 Liberty House expanded onto the mainland with AmFac's purchase of the Rhodes Western Department Stores, a longtime consolidator of department stores. The former Rhodes stores were renamed Liberty House between 1971 and 1974. The mainland operation eventually included stores in Arizona, California, Nevada, Oregon, Texas, New Mexico, and Washington. This expansion culminated with the construction of a new San Francisco flagship store in 1974 at Stockton and O'Farrell Streets. Poor results and a scattered footprint caused the rethinking of future investment, and in 1978 Liberty House began winding down the mainland stores, with the remaining 10 being sold in 1984. Liberty House closed 9 of its 10 California stores in 1984 due to poor sales. The only one not closed at the time was San Mateo Fashion Island in San Mateo, California, which stayed open until 1986. In 1988 AmFac was acquired in a leveraged buyout by JMB Realty Corporation, a Chicago real estate investment company, under whose ownership Liberty House expanded to Micronesia Mall in Guam in 1994. In 1998 Liberty House filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, under which it closed most of its resort store business, which had totaled over 40 stores at one point. In 2001, after emerging from bankruptcy, the company was acquired by Federated Department Stores and merged into Macy's West. Macy's currently maintains a common law trademark by using the libertyhouse.com domain, which forwards to the Macy's website. The San Francisco Liberty House would become the men's store of Macy's Union Square until 2017, when Macy's would close it and it would be renovated for mixed use. Steinbach was founded in 1870 by the Steinbach brothers, John, Henry, and Jacob in Long Branch. The brothers expanded to the Asbury location 4 years later. In the early 20th century, Steinbach's was considered to be the world's largest department store. The company was at one time affiliated with the Kresge Newark department store in downtown Newark. In the 1960s, the chain was purchased by Supermarkets General Corporation, and continued to operate as a standalone company. SGC also purchased the Howland chain in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which had previously merged the Janung's chain of stores into itself, along with the 2-store Gorks department store based in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Howland also continued to run as a standalone chain, while the Gorks stores became part of the Steinbach chain, and in turn were rebranded Steinbach. In the 1970s, the chain opened 3 full-line branches at shopping mall locations along the growing Jersey Shore, including the chain's largest, a unit at the Shore Mall near Atlantic City. In 1976, a fourth mall location was opened at the Seaview Square Mall, near its downtown Asbury Park store. The Seaview Square location was opened as the chain's most upscale store, and a number of departments were originally not part of the merchandise mix. This changed when the downtown Asbury Park location was closed in 1979, and Seaview Square was modified to include all departments that were carried at the former downtown store. The Asbury Park location burned down in 1989. In the late 1970s, SGC merged the two chains together under the corporate name Howland Steinbach. Each chain retained its original name, but were operated by a single corporate office. SGC sold the chain in the 1980s to Netherlands-based Amsania Corporation, the owners of the New York City-based Oorbox chain. Amsania in turn converted most of its Oorbox stores to Steinbach stores. The parent company also converted all of the former Howland stores to the Steinbach nameplate, and closed the former Oorbox flagship location in New York. By the late 1980s, Amsania opted to sell the chain, Value City purchased some of the stores, and Detroit-based Crowley Milner and Company purchased some others. The chain was liquidated with the rest of Crowley Milner in 1999. Kress opened his first stationery and notion store in Nanticoke, Pennsylvania, in 1887. The chain of S.H. Kress & Company May 10, 2025 stores was established in 1896 in Memphis, Tennessee. In the 1920s and 1930s, Kress sold a house label of phonograph records under the Romeo trademark. He died in 1955. The events that led to the Harlem Riot of 1935 began at the Kress department store at 256 West 125th Street across from the Apollo Theater. The company's exclusion of African Americans from its lunch counters also made Kress a target for civil rights protests during the 1960 lunch counter sit-ins, along with Woolworths, Rexall and other national chains. In Nashville, Tennessee, Kress repeatedly refused to serve the protesters but eventually agreed to integrate the downtown store in reaction to a consumer boycott. The Greensboro, North Carolina Kress was included in the first civil rights demonstrations in the South. In a Dix v. S.H. Kress Company, the U.S. Supreme Court threw out convictions for vagrancy resulting from a sit-in at a Kress lunch counter in Mississippi. The Kress store in Baton Rouge was the site of that city's first civil rights sit-in. That event helped save it from demolition 45 years later. In 1964, Genesco Incorporated acquired Kress. The company abandoned its Center City stores and moved to shopping malls. Genesco began liquidating Kress and closing down the Kress stores in 1980. The remaining Kress stores were sold to McCrory Stores on January 1, 1981. Most continued to operate under the Kress name until McCrory Stores went out of business in 2001. Herman's World of Sporting Goods was a sporting goods retailer in the U.S. It was founded by Herman Steinlauf in 1916 as a music store. Founded in 1916 by Herman and Eddie Steinlauf as a music store in Lower Manhattan. The first store was at 110 Nassau Street, in Lower Manhattan. Later, the chain expanded to East 42nd Street and East 34th Street, then to Paramus, New Jersey. The chain kept growing as time went on, in the New York metropolitan area and later other areas. Herman's later became a sporting goods outlet and was sold as a four-store group in 1970 to W.R. Grace. Eddie Steinlauf's son Leonard expanded into a fourth store in Paramus, creating the first sporting goods superstore. This drew the attention of W.R. Grace, who made a play for the company. Leonard Steinlauf fought the sale, citing his vision of creating a chain of sporting goods superstores. He believed Herman should stay a family company. Herman Steinlauf and Leonard Steinlauf's sister pressured Leonard into selling his 25% of the company, a decision he would regret. Leonard Steinlauf became Herman's CEO but lasted less than 10 years under a bad relationship with W.R. Grace. In 1985, the D Corporation of the UK, unable to expand in the UK due to its extensive holdings, purchased Herman's. To expand the chain, D moved west with the acquisition of M&H Sporting Goods, which operated 41 units under the Sunset Sports Centers and Wolf's names in western states. By 1992, Herman's had 259 stores in 35 states. In 1993, the company was sold to a group of investors, including the Taggart/Fasola Group. Citing its excessive debt load from acquisitions, Taggart/Fasola immediately applied for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and announced it would concentrate on its Northeast region, closing or selling all of its stores west of Pennsylvania and south of Virginia. This came even though the company had profitable locations in other regions in the U.S., notably Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Chicago. Some units were sold to other retailers. A consortium of Garp Brothers, MC Sports, and Big 5 Sporting Goods purchased a package of 21 locations in Arizona, Washington, Idaho, Utah, and Illinois. Later, Herman's exited several ancillary markets in the Northeast, notably Buffalo and Pittsburgh. While in Chapter 11 reorganization, the chain's financial improved, including the acquisition of the 17 gold medal stores in the Philadelphia area. It emerged from Chapter 11 in September 1994 with 103 stores. However, the chain soon was in financial difficulty again. 1995 was a difficult year for the company as competition intensified, causing a cash shortage. On April 26, 1996, it filed for Chapter 11 again, cited a crowded market, including such category killers as Sports Authority, as well as a harsh winter and recent strikes and lockouts in baseball and hockey for diminishing sales. It then proceeded to liquidate its stores in 1996. In October 1900, pharmacist John A. Hook opened the first Hook's drug store in an Indianapolis German community at the corner of Southeast and Prospect Streets. A second location opened at the corner of New Jersey and East Washington Streets, and Hook added Edward F. Roche as a partner. By 1912, the chain had expanded to 12 stores. Many of Hook's Interwar drug stores were designed by Kurt Vonnegut Sr. of Vonnegut and Bone. Roche became president of the company in 1943 upon Hook's death. In 1956, following Roche's death in a traffic accident, John Hook's son, August F. Bud Hook, assumed leadership of the company. The chain added 150 new stores between 1946 and 1972. In 1985, the Kroger Company outbid Rite Aid, which had attempted a hostile takeover, and acquired the Hook's chain. Kroger divested itself of Hook's and its own Soup RX drugstores a year later, and Hook's became a division of the privately held Hook's Soup RX. Hook's Soup RX acquired the New England-based Brooks Pharmacy chain in 1988. Hook's Soup RX stores traded under three different names: Hook's Drug and Soup RX in the Midwest and Brooks Pharmacy in New England. Hook's Soup RX was acquired by Revco in 1994. Revco was subsequently acquired by CVS in 1997. Many former Hook's locations are now CVS pharmacies.
If you have any fond memories, please indicate it at the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and like.